back to the Noncommissioned Rascals channel, where we are your unofficial sponsors. Today we're here at the Hawaiian Plantation Village to show you around. They do have a museum inside, but unfortunately we're not allowed to film, so we're just going to show you what it looks like on the outside. So follow along and we're going to head on in.
Not sure what those are, but doesn't really say what they are.
We got the what we call this thing?
Oh, I see. Waipahu Memorial Stone.
Waipahu Sugar Company had no families to tend to the graves.
Well, we'll go through a tunnel.
Okay, so this is the Hawaiian Hale. From 1840 to 1875, the Hawaiians constituted the majority of workers on the sugar plantations. Their living quarters were built using traditional materials with a coral and lava rock platform and a wooden post structure with thatching attached to lashed horizontal members. This structure represents the typical sleeping quarters, or hale mo, of the working people, or maka ainana. Some of the earliest housing for immigrant workers on the sugar plantation resembled these thatched structures. This is the Chinese Society building, built in 1909. The reconstructed Chinese Society building consists of one large meeting room on the first floor. On the second floor is a shrine dedicated to Quan Dai, the Chinese god of war and wealth. The altar is flanked by closets or shrine rows containing ancestral tablets and calligraphic prayers, slips for the dead. No detailed photo or description of the original structure on this site are known to exist. Therefore, this building is reconstructed from measured drawing of the Kwak Hing Tong in Kula, Maui, which is similar in its size, configuration, and period construction to the Sun Ni Tong building.
You guys can go home, Dad. I got Jaden. I got you. Hey, Grandma, take you for a walk. Grandma, take you for a
The herb
stroll.
garden here. There's rosemary, thyme, some mint. This is a kitchen circa 1920. The early period houses had kitchens in separate buildings at the rear of the house. The interior usually contained a wooden basin, food safes, screen cupboards for food storage, and either a kerosene or charcoal stove. Although these kitchens seem crude by modern standards, the facilities were an improvement over the earliest pattern of cooking outdoors over an open fire or a brazier. This construction is based on measured drawings of a kitchen building from Waipahu's Nishi'i camp, which existed behind the mill. It's an outdoor wood-fired oven. House circa 1918, the Portuguese were originally contracted as field workers. Some became lunas, which are overseers. Between 1878 and 1913, 17,500 Portuguese were brought in from the Azores and Madeira. Most of them arrived with their families. Early Portuguese plantation homes were quite small and simple, consisting of several rooms for living and sleeping. This whitewashed building was without ceiling, open to the roof structure, which allowed little privacy within the family. The early type of single-family house was one of the stages in the history of housing for plantation workers. It represents a step up from dormitory-style accommodations, but it lacks the amenities of later period houses. This house is a reconstruction built from measured drawings of an early single-family house in Waipahu Village in central Oahu. The Portuguese house and associated structures are made possible by United Airlines in honor of William A. Patterson.
Some people still have those kind of... It's not very good. They should have big signs. There's your fig tree. Keep going. That's close. Yeah, that's... Grandma's used one of those before. Get ready to use one of those.
This is a kitchen circa 1920. The early period houses had kitchens in separate buildings at the rear of the house. The interior usually contained a wood basin, food safes, and either a kerosene or charcoal stove. Although these kitchens seem crude, the facilities were an improvement. This construction is based on measured drawings of a kitchen building from Waipahu's Nishi'i camp, which existed behind the sugar mill. Puerto Rican house circa 1900. From 1900 to 1901, some 5,200 Puerto Ricans were brought to the Hawaiian Islands as laborers in the sugar plantations. They were often recruited as families. A number of them became lunas, which were overseers. The devastating 1899 hurricane on the home island was one of the factors that induced them to move to Hawaii. A house with 2 rooms and a 6-foot wide lanai porch was one of the standard quarters at the turn of the century. The wide plank board and batten walls made of rough milled wood are typical of early plantation structures. This residential structure is a reconstruction built from measured drawings of a house that was located in Mauna, Kauai. The Puerto Rican house and its associated structures are made possible by the McCarran Foundation. Japanese duplex circa 1910. The duplex unit was one of the first standard house types to be constructed by the plantations and is typical of the homes provided for Japanese families. Previously, families were housed in converted dormitory-style accommodations. Often crowded and lacking privacy, these lodgings were often inadequate for family life. New duplexes were provided after the 1909 strike, where the workers demanded better working and living conditions. For convenience, the kitchens were attached or incorporated into the main structure rather than built as separate outbuildings. This reconstruction is built on measured drawings of a building in Waipahu camp in the Hamakua coast on the island of Hawaii. Wash house circa 1920. Wash houses like these with concrete floors were an improvement over conditions in the earlier decades when laundry facilities were minimal or lacking entirely. By the 1920s, items such as clotheslines and laundry buildings were provided, usually between rows of houses, to make washing and drying a social event. Some of the workers' wives made a little extra income for their families doing laundry of bachelors in the camp. Tofu ya. Each of the different ethnic groups living in the plantation villages had a desire of foods from their home country. Those with an entrepreneurial spirit started businesses in their homes to earn extra money. One of the enterprises started by Japanese families was the manufacturing and sale of tofu, a bean curd made from soybeans. This building is reconstruction from measured drawings of the tofu ya. Japanese house circa 1919. At this time, Hawaii Sugar Plantation Association began to realize that the sparse living accommodations were contributing to labor strikes and causing workers to leave for other plantations. Hawaii Sugar Plantation Association recognized the need to build family-oriented communities. In an effort to upgrade the camps, they generated and distributed standard family housing plans. Separate yards and facilities were provided for each household. This period marked the transition from plantation camps to plantation villages.
If I could get a couple of them off there, I'd take them. And get off the stroller. I gotta keep him moving. Birds gonna get on him.
Some starfruit. Starfruit tree. Right here's some hanging. There's some.
Oh, well, look there. Wish a rifle was hanging down there. I'd grab it. It's all green. Hey, there'll be another.
Okay, this is the Wakamiya Inari Shrine. The Wakamiya Inari Shrine is listed on the National and Hawaii Registers of Historic Places. The Inari is a minor Shinto sect primarily associated with the working class. This Japanese sect is animistic in character, with the fox as a messenger. This shrine was last active public shrine of its sect on Oahu. Like other Inari shrines, this modest building is painted a bright red color, which distinguishes it from other Shinto shrines. The shrine was constructed in 1914 in the Kaka'ako section of Honolulu under the direction of Reverend Yoshio Akazari. Under the threat of demolition, the shrine was disassembled and moved to Waipahu Cultural Garden Park. The gateway entry is a reconstruction based on historic photographs and measurement of the Inari shrines, originally torii gates. This building is a barber shop. Barbering was one of the earliest professions to develop in the plantation communities. In the earliest years, the barbering service was performed with minimal equipment, often outdoors. Eventually, a barber shop could be found in every plantation camp with more than 25 homes. The Japanese were dominant in this trade. Reconstruction of this building was based on measured drawings and historic photographs of a barbershop in Waipahu's Nishii camp before it was demolished in the 1980s. This is a community furrow. Public furrow or community baths were very common in the Japanese camps. Although the community furrow served common functions as a social gathering place as well as bathing facilities, there were many different designs and layouts. In this example, one large concrete tub is partitioned to separate men from women above the water level. Although partitioned, the children swam back and forth under the divider as if it were a shallow warm water pool. The water was typically heated with a diesel burning furnace located in a metal shed adjacent to the furrow building. The building was reconstructed through oral history accounts and from an individual whose family ran the furrow concession at Waipahu, as well as measurements of the concrete of the furrow in Waipahu Nishii camp. This is the Okinawan house. The Okinawan house is based on the same standard HSPA plan as the Japanese house and Korean house. These three structures suggest the repetition typically found in plantation villages. This house is almost identical to the Korean house, but its floor plan is a mirror of the standard HSPA plan of the Korean house. This house has a sanitary kitchen unit with room for a kerosene stove, sink, and safe, which is a screen cupboard used to store food before refrigeration.
His old banjo.
Oh, that's really cool. This is a multi-purpose outbuilding. The duplex structure efficiently contains the three facilities of toilet, laundry, and shower for 2 families. This combination of facilities was seen in Kawailoa 5 Camp on the north shore of Oahu as late as 1985. These combined facilities resulted in a single waste water flow and improved sanitation over earlier conditions. This building is the Korean house. Similar in plan to the Japanese house and Okinawan house, these 3 structures give a sense of the standardizing house typically found in plantation villages. This house has a sanitary kitchen unit, a 9-foot by 2-foot module with room for stove, sink, and food safe. This module could be applied to any of the Hawaiian Sugar Planters Association plans or added to existing homes to convert a room into a kitchen. Oh, very pretty. This structure here is called the Sumo Ring. Japanese immigrants performed sumo matches for King Kalakaua when he visited the immigration compound at Honolulu Harbor in February of 1885. This vigorous and highly ritualized sumo tradition was carried on by the Japanese in the plantation camps. Indeed, many non-Japanese enjoyed the matches, and young men of other nationalities participated in the training and competition. This structure is based on historic photographs of the sumo ring at Eva Plantation. This building is the Filipino dormitory. From 1906 to 1946, the Hawaiian Sugar Planters Association heavily recruited immigrants from the Philippines. Like the Chinese, many of the Philippine immigrants were single males who were housed in facilities such as this dormitory building. The men took their meals in communal dining rooms or with neighboring facilities and often had their laundry done by the wives of their coworkers. This reconstructed mid-period dormitory building is based on Plan 1 of the first published set of Hawaii Sugar Planters Association plans. This structure here is the toilet and sink building. This outbuilding is associated with the dormitory structure, which had no inside plumbing facilities. The HSPA produced drawings of other versions of this type of building, varying upon the number of residents to be served. This small building contains a toilet and wash basins. The building is approximately 5 feet by 12 feet, 6 inches plan. The walls are of 1 inch by 12 inch board and batten, single-walled construction. The side gabled roof is a corrugated metal and the floor plan is concrete. There is a small toilet compartment with a plank door. The basin area is open to the exterior and at the front. This is the Filipino family house. This structure is a fine example of the larger homes built for plantation families in the pre-war period. With indoor kitchen and bathing facilities, these homes were similar to those in a typical American suburb. This house is a reconstruction based on measured drawings of the Wan family's home in Pa'ahau on the Hamakua coast on the island of Hawaii. Garage buildings became more common on plantations as wages and conditions improved due to union demands of worker expectations. Although more workers could afford to purchase automobiles in this period, the garages often had to be located away from the homes given the camp layouts. Simon is a much-loved Japanese soup with noodles, vegetables, and sometimes meat in the broth. Laborers would crowd around stands such as this before and after work. This building is reconstructed through oral history accounts of Goro Arakawa, and has been adopted by the Shiroma family. A plantation store was a general store that sold practically everything for the plantation workers' household of that period, and a majority of the items for daily living needs of the workers. The items retailed in the store included clothing, foodstuffs, and hardware. The groceries sold included fresh meat and fish, fresh vegetables and fruit, and a wide variety of canned and boxed goods. This building is a replica of the Yamamoto store in Koloa, Kauai. Where Hawaii's first commercial sugar operations were started. As a field outpost of the Luna, which is an overseer, the camp office was an important aspect of the workers' daily lives. The office was the center of technical operations such as irrigation monitoring and administrative tasks, including worker scheduling, distribution of paychecks, and record keeping. It was here that the daily sirens blew, which summoned the workers in the morning and marked the end of the workday. This building is a reconstruction based on measured drawings of a still functioning division office in Makaweli, Kauai. This building is the infirmary. The plantation medical staff handled emergency care and routine illnesses, as well as and public health issues such as inoculations, nutrition education, and dental and prenatal care. A visit to the plantation doctor was necessary to obtain an excuse from a day's work in the fields or mill. Outlying camps would often have an infirmary building such as this, which was visited regularly by plantation staff that operated the dispensary and clinic in this structure. Ethnic folk remedies were another type of medical care in the plantation village. Reconstruction of the infirmary / dispensary is based on measured drawings of an existing structure in Kawailoa Camp above Haleiwa on the north shore of Oahu. After the 1920 strike, recreation facilities were developed by the plantations as an inducement to keep workers and their families constructively occupied. Social halls, or clubhouses, were provided for skilled and non-skilled workers. In addition to housing social and entertainment events, the hall also provided a place for the workers to organize union affiliations and hold regular meetings. Reconstruction of the building is based on measured drawings of the social hall at Store Camp Ocala on the Hamakua coast on the island of Hawaii. In 1991, archaeologists discovered a small informal cemetery on the slopes of an island gulch located in Waimea, Ewa, Oahu. Let me just start over. That's not what that is. Waiawa. Okay. In 1991, archaeologists discovered a small informal cemetery on the slopes of an inland gulch located in Waiawa, Ewa, Oahu. A Japanese pineapple camp and canned Pearl City Fruit Company and later Hawaiian Fruit Company had occupied the area during the early 20th century. The immigrant inhabitants of the camp modified and utilized the steep slopes of the gulch to bury and memorialize their dead. Locally available materials, such as naturally shaped basalt boulders and hand-hewn basalt blocks were used. Since the families of those buried in this cemetery could not be located, the decision to exhibit the stones here as part of our village seemed appropriate for the remembrance of those who came before us. The artifacts displayed are all real, not replicas or models. You are welcome to examine the stones up close, but please respect the original intent. For your safety and those around you, please do not touch or try to move the stones. Traditionally, structures of this type were built as workspaces for canoe building. Here were kept the canoes, paddles, fish nets, and articles used in canoeing and fishing. A stone platform raised the floor above the damp earth. The large foundation stones which formed the floor were then covered with small pebbles. These pebbles were strewn over and between the larger rocks and the foundation. The pebbly floor was often covered with dry grass, over which floor mats of sturdy lauhala were added. The entire framework of posts were lashed together with strong cordage and formed a basic structure. The sides were thatched with la'ala palm leaves, but left open on the ends. All right, this was the Hawaiian Plantation Village. There is a 100% chance that I mispronounced some of those words, but I hope that you learned something today. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to tune in next time for more exciting adventures around the islands of Oahu, because we want you to be in the know everywhere we go.
Like, share, and subscribe. Noncommissioned Rascals.